This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and in this episode I'm going to share with you my oatmeal caramel bars. This bar cookie is so great. It has kind of a cookie crust, then it has layers of chocolate, walnuts, and caramel with more cookie crust on top. For this recipe, the first thing we want to do is get our pan ready. And I'm going to be baking these bar cookies in a 9 by 9 inch square pan. And I want to get the pan ready because you know how it is when you make a bar cookie, how hard it is to get the cookies out. Well, I like to make a sling for it, and let me show you how I do that. First thing I do is I take my pan and I'm just going to spray it with a little bit of baking spray. Next, you want to get a piece of parchment. Now, I actually had a piece of parchment left over from the last time I made something where I needed to put a sleeve in it, and that's why I save these pieces. But if you don't have a spare piece, just take a piece of parchment, get it to be about the width of your pan, slice it with a knife or a pair of scissors, and then just lay it right down in the pan like this. And then take your baking spray and just do one more little spritz. Then the pan is ready, and when it comes time to take these bar cookies out, it'll be really easy to hold on to these sleeves and just pull it right out. In these bar cookies, there's this layer of caramel. Let me show you how we get that. I've taken 32 caramels, which is about 9 ounces, and these are in the United States, they come individually wrapped like this. So I've unwrapped them and I've counted out 32, and I'm going to put these in a small saucepan. And to the caramels, I'm going to add 5 tablespoons of heavy cream. Now I've brought this over to the stove and I've put it on a medium heat. And I'm going to use my spoon and I'm going to get that cream heated up, and these caramels are going to start melting. After about 5 minutes, the cream is going to start getting really hot, and then I'm going to turn the heat down to a low and continuing stirring so that these caramels can get nice and melted. Now the caramel is nice and melted, so at this point I'm going to take it off the heat. Now we're going to get the crust for our bar cookies ready. And to get started, in a large bowl, I'm going to measure out 1 cup of a quick cooking oat. And to that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar that I've packed down into the cup, a cup of flour, 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix those dry ingredients together real well, and then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of melted butter, and I just put the butter in this measuring cup and put it in the microwave until it was melted. Now we want to mix this together, making sure that all those dry ingredients have been moistened by that melted butter. Now you can see it comes in handy to use a wooden spoon here, because it's important that we not see any dry ingredients left in the bowl. That butter is what's going to help compact down and make a really great crust. That looks pretty well mixed together. Now I'm going to take 1/2 of our crumb mixture and I'm going to put that into the bottom of our pan. And with my hands, I'm just going to move those crumbs all along the bottom, making sure it's got a pretty nice, even layer. It looks like I have a little bit of a spot there, so I'm just going to add a few more. And then I'm just going to take my hand and press those down to make the base crust for these cookies. Now I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees and I'm going to bake this crust for about 10 minutes. And also I've left the rest of the crumbs right here in this bowl because I'm going to use those later. Now while the crust is baking, there's a few other ingredients I want to get ready. I want to get a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips measured out and a half a cup of chopped walnuts. I've also brought my caramel over and it's starting to thicken up nicely, and then I have my crumb topping. Now as soon as the crust comes out of the oven, we're going to start putting all of these things on top of it. Now these have come right out of the oven. They're really, really hot. So the first thing we want to do is take our chocolate chips and we want to sprinkle those right on top. Trying to get them as evenly sprinkled as we can. Then I'm going to put on the nuts. Then I'm going to take all the caramel and put that on top. And I'm just going to start by putting it right in the center like this. And then I'm going to use a little spatula to kind of move it out to the edges. And don't worry about if the caramel and the nuts and the chocolate get mixed together. It's not a big deal. They're going to all melt together anyway. But we do want to make sure we have a layer of this caramel all the way through the bar cookie. And now I'm going to take the rest of the crumb mixture and just sprinkle that on top. Now one of the things that whenever I'm making a topping like this, when I get a handful of it out of the bowl, I kind of squeeze it with my hand to kind of make it come together in some larger pieces. Now these are going to go back in the oven for 15 more minutes. These smell so good, and can you see the caramel is bubbling up along the sides? Yum! Now the only thing is we have to let these sit in the pan like this for a whole hour before we can take them out. Now the bar cookies are cool enough to take out of the pan. The first thing you want to do is get a knife and you want to run it along the two sides where we have no parchment. And it's really important because that caramel has sort of bubbled over and it can get kind of stuck to the pan. Then I've got a cutting board here, and what I'm going to do is take my sleeves, I'm going to lift this out of the pan right onto the cutting board, and see there's nothing left in the pan, which is great. You can take the same large knife that we used before, and I'm going to cut this right down the center. Then I'm going to take each half and cut that in half. And then I'm going to take my board and I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to take each strip and cut it into fourths as well. And you can see with this cookie we get this great topping, the caramel, the chocolate, and the crust. Well, if you'd like to give these oatmeal caramel bars a try at home, just go to our website and go to the cookie jar show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, send me an email. I'll see you next time.